Pam makes use of that when she writes up the minutes and does a great job.
Thank you. Okay. And I will pretend I'm Eric for a few minutes until he is officially online. And I welcome everyone who's here. And we hope a few more people show up.
Very good.
I am Pam Van Hine. I am the recording secretary for the PAC. We'll go around and start with introductions. Let's see, we have people. Okay. Okay, that was myself. Andrea, you're next. Can you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Andrea Walker, a member of the PAC and also the Commission on Aging, and my neighborhood is Arlington Ridge.
Oh, and I forgot Eric's question that he wanted us to answer, which was our favorite pedestrian infrastructure. And I will say, living in the neighborhood where Andrea and I live, where we're very boxed in, I like bridges and tunnels. My favorite existing tunnels are the Crystal City Connector that lets us get off through under the railroad tracks over to the Mount Vernon Trail, and the tunnel which Andrea introduced me to that connects our neighborhood to the Pentagon lot. And the bridges that I'm most looking forward to are CC to DCA and the Long Bridge project, bike ped project, for which there was a new update that just sent out. Andrea, do you have any?
Well, I continue to really, very happy with the county doing all they can to on Lang Street with Gunston. It does seem as if the temporary speed bumps are doing their job. I'm, like I said, very pleased. Good.
I agree with you. I think it's making a huge difference. It definitely, you cannot fly over those temporary speed bumps.
That's the truth.
And David Patton, you are up next.
Alrighty, I'm David Patton. I'm a transportation planner for the county, work in the Division of Transportation. I'm a bike ped planner and liaison to this committee. I live in DC. Let's see, favorite piece of, I'd have to say Arlington Memorial Bridge. I'm very fond of Arlington Memorial Bridge. It was recently rebuilt to the tune of $230 million, I think. It belongs to the Park Service. We have counters on it, so we're counting every bike and pedestrian trip that crosses it, and get some pretty big numbers, especially in nice weather. And it's a great place to see the city, and it's right on the axis of the monumental core of DC.
Yeah, it's a great connection. And you have counters on both sides of the bridge?
Both sidewalks.
Yeah, sidewalks.
Yes.
Right. Do you notice a difference in the travel?
From when to when? I mean, it varies a lot. Like
well, which side people use?
Oh, the downstream side gets about twice as many people as the upstream side.
Okay, I'm not surprised. Yeah, there's more connections on that side.
More connections on both ends of the bridge. It's better connected.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, I agree. Thank you. And next up is Eric Malpelli.
Hi, Eric Malpelli, member, live in Old Dominion Civic Association area. Favorite pedestrian infrastructure, I forget the fancy name for it, but by the aquatic center, that kind of like promenade that's high up.
Oh, it's the Esplanade, yes.
The Esplanade. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm on it all the time.
Is great for the toddler to do plane and train spotting all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people spotting. Thank you, Eric. And next up is, we're going to skip Eric Goodman. Jim Feaster.
Yes, Jim Feaster. I'm a member of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I'm a former member of the Commission on Aging, and I remain on the Commission on Aging's Transportation Committee. And my favorite, I live in Ballston, and my favorite instructor would be the Bluemont Connector Trail and the WNOD Trail. But I also use, that's my favorite biking trail also, as well as walking. But also we can walk over to the pond, the Beaver Pond at Ballston, and along the pond, and then eventually connect to the Custis Trail by going up Glebe Road and connect to the Custis Trail.
Thank you. And next up is Mary DeLau.
Let me get my camera on. So hello. So I'm Mary DeLau and I am with Walk Arlington and I live in Bluemont. And so my favorite, I love our RFBs and any kind of signalized crosswalks. But another thing that I love is that peekaboo pedestrian bridge over Route 50 that connects North and South Arlington. And I especially take that when I'm going to the fair. And it's just so easy to get to Thomas Jefferson and you could walk or bike it. So I think that's a really good thing.
Thank you.
I've
Those are great.
never
Go
heard
ahead.
it called the Peekaboo Bridge before. That's
Yeah, that's what Evelyn on our team always used to call it. And I'm like, what's that? And then as soon as I picture the bridge, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So that's what she called it.
Great. Thank you. A new name. And next up is Matt Jones. Thank you for coming, Matt.
Yeah, hi everyone. Hi Pam. Matt Jones, the National Landing Bid Mobility Manager. Good to see so many familiar faces and names. Question: what was the prompt, Pam? I came in a little bit.
Your favorite pedestrian infrastructure, preferably around Arlington.
Oh, favorite. You know what? My favorite is the new Frederick Douglass Bridge. You know,
Oh,
because it's a departure from our Park Service bridges, if you know what I mean. You know, look at Key Bridge is amazing. A lot of our bridges have been designed that, but nothing architectural above in terms of pedestrian or auto. But that one is a departure and it's iconic in a way, you know. So I think that's a stepping forward into the 21st century.
yeah.
yeah, it's very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then we have Paul Monnier.
Good evening. My name is Paul Mounier. I'm an associate planner with Arlington County. I'm responsible for planning and scheduling the bus service for the art system. I live in Fairfax County. As for Arlington County, the pedestrian infrastructure, compared to Fairfax County, is really strong. What I've been admiring recently, it's all the improvements around Courthouse. There's a nice little promenade between the new building that I think when spring and summer come, that whole area is it makes it a place. And I just think it's something I've been admiring as it's been built.
Great,
Good-
thank you.
good example.
And I was today, or a couple days ago, I was at a Crystal House 3 meeting, and they said that indeed we will probably get a floating bus island on Eads by 18th. That they're working on that, and that would be wonderful. We hoped for that when the original Crystal House project was approved in 2019, but it was kind of like too early. The county really hadn't done much of that yet, but now the county's doing them all over 22202, and it'd be great to have one there. So thank you for all your hard work, and thank you for coming tonight, and we look forward to your presentation. And did I miss anybody who's here? Eric, are you online yet? No?
I can talk. I'm still walking.
Oh, okay. You
So,
want to introduce yourself?
yeah. Embarrassingly, I'm still trying to get my way home.
I'm sorry.
But I would say there are a couple things that I think the first thing that I would talk about in terms of just infrastructure changes that have really made a difference is Arlington made an effort to go through many neighborhoods and grind down sidewalks to make them even, and that has made a huge difference in sidewalks. I hope they come around and do it again in another couple years, but that has made a lot of the sidewalks much more traversable because a lot of them heave up on one corner or another. So it's good to see that. The other sort of infrastructure that I think is kind of cool, there's an area that they call the secret path, at least that's what I've heard it as, that starts over by Arlington Boulevard and Washington Boulevard and sort of goes through backyard neighborhood common areas and then comes out. Just where does it actually? It travels for several blocks and I guess comes out, sort of runs a little bit parallel to Washington Boulevard. I think it exits about a block off of Washington Boulevard, but it is the fun little path. I don't know if people have walked that. So
That sounds great. Sometimes show it to us on a map, or we'll have to all try it.
all right.
Thank you.
David, what's the name of the Eric just mentioned the program for grinding down the bumps.
Yes. I don't know, Jim, but I bet I know who does. And it's probably that fellow Jeremy Hassan, who's been to the PAC a few times to talk about the sidewalk inventory.
Yeah, there's a formal name to it, yeah.
And I'm afraid I don't know, but he managed the collection of, and now is sitting on a big pile of data about sidewalk conditions.
Yeah.
And then based on that, they've been doing various pieces of work. And I think the grinding that Eric mentioned, although it might be older, is the kind of work that comes out of that kind of data.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's going to be Water Sewer Streets Bureau, but I don't know what the particular project or program is called.
Well, thank you, everyone. And we will hope that Eric is with us soon. And meanwhile, we will continue. If it's okay with you, Eric, could we ask Paul to, oh, actually, the first item is the winter operations and snow clearing. Is that something that you can address, David?
It is. But may I suggest,
Yes.
because what I want to talk about is of particular interest to Eric. So why don't we do a switcheroo and
Okay.
ask Paul to go first. And then when Eric's able to join us, I can share what I've learned in the last few days.
Okay. Paul, is that okay with you?
Yeah, certainly. I can go ahead and present.
Thank you so much. And then, of course, you're welcome to leave. Thank you so
You're
much
on,
for
man.
coming. Yes, you're on.
All right, give me one moment here. Okay, good evening. I'm here to speak about the floating bus stops, bus stop island treatments that the county is putting in. I've been to, I started this working on standards 2 years ago when we started planning floating bus stops for installation around the county. We didn't have standards. First stop that went in was at Pierce and Wilson. There was some concerns about that island, and as I said, we didn't have a lot of standards at that time, and began the process of meeting with different groups. I've come to the pedestrian group, bicycle group, talked to you, Disability Service Board, the Transit Advisory Commission. I went and talked to the WMATA Accessibility Board. It was a long process. WMATA is also working on standards. They got a later start than us. They had some issues with purchasing. They started in about September of last year and finished early January, but there's still some things that we'll talk about as I go through this. So first, what is floating bus stop? As you can see on the screen, there's a little image from the NACDO manual, and essentially the way a floating bus stop differs from a regular bus stop is when there is a dedicated bike lane along the street, the bike lane is pushed behind the loading area for where the bus is and separates it from traffic. What that does, it does cause a conflict between pedestrians and bicycles that wasn't previously there, but it does eliminate the conflict between bicycles and buses, which is a more dangerous conflict. And with so many different modes in Arlington competing for limited space, this is a way that we are able to share that space between all the modes and provide the best mobility and access through the areas. So as I said, went to several different organizations to speak with them on floating bus stops. And these three main concerns were what came out of all the conversations we had. First, there needs to be mitigation for the conflict between pedestrians and bicycles. There was a desire for wayfinding for individuals with low vision. These are new treatments that haven't been used in this area. People are not familiar with them. And as I said, there's a new conflict between bicycles and pedestrians that is particularly difficult to navigate for people with low vision, based on bicycles being much quieter and a different configuration, how to get to where the loading area is. And the third is regional standards for the construction of floating bus stops. Essentially, we want to our transit network in the county is really part of a greater regional network, and people use transit to travel in Arlington County, Fairfax County, Alexandria, DC, Montgomery County. And when you go and through the transit system and you get off at one of these bus stops, they should look the same. So as people get used to using them, they're not having to learn 5 different configurations and 5 different sets of rules to use a floating bus stop. So just recently, there are some projects that are coming up in the near future. In particular, Clarendon and North Pierce and Walter Reed Drive, with the Complete Streets project along Walter Reed Drive. This presentation was actually something that we had that was taken by us to talk with WMATA, as there are some elements that they would like to see at floating bus stops, but they seem to conflict with standards that are in place for some of the elements. And I'll talk to that in a little bit. So as we have put together the standards for floating bus stops, we've taken guidance from, street design, from the Arlington Master Transportation Plan, the Arlington Transit Bus Stop Guidelines and Standards, and that has been updated, as I mentioned. Been working on it for about 2 years. So that was updated and made final in about September of 2023. With the understanding that we are still learning about these elements, but we feel that with how many are in the pipeline right now, that we need to have something that we can give developers and our engineering staff to work from to develop these. Then WMATA has also published guidelines. They updated their design and placement of transit stops guidance. That does include floating bus stops in it also. There's a bus priority toolbox that they did in conjunction with that placement of transit stops. 2019 Bus Amenity Reference Guide, and 2017 Station Area Planning Guide. Those are all WMATA documents that we reference as we're putting in stops. In Arlington, WMATA does have a great deal of bus service that comes to and through the county, and it's important that we have infrastructure that they feel comfortable serving so that our residents can use those services. We have looked at the Americans with Disabilities Act. Everything that we have put in is in compliance with the ADA, public right-of-way and access guidelines, manual on uniform traffic control, and NACTO street design guide. So these are all elements of studies, manuals, guidance that we use as we put together our standards for floating bus stops, and that we try to adhere to. So I'm going to go through just a couple of examples real quickly, talk about some of the elements, and talk about some of the things that we are having continuing conversations with WMATA about. As you can see, this is Clarendon, North Pierce Street. You can see there are 2 crossings to the bus stop. This is right here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong pointer. This stop right here has a raised crosswalk that provides some vertical deflection to help slow bicyclists. You can see there's a stop bar here. And this will be a stop for pedestrians sign that is associated with that. My understanding is that recently the law was changed from a yield to pedestrian to a stop to pedestrian. So all vehicles must stop for pedestrians. So you see a stop bar here, raised crosswalk. And then at the intersection, you have the main crosswalk where, people would regularly cross anyway, but that is also a crosswalk that allows you to get to the island and cross through the intersection. As you can see, the bike lane that goes through here, there is railing all along the back of the bus stop, so that you are channeled to the crossing, so people aren't willy-nilly trying to run across at different locations, but trying to cross at locations where they need to cross. I'm not sure if I'm showing up here. I don't know. One of the things that we have been in conversations with WMATA about is they would like to have an audio signal at every stop or every crossing for the stop, which goes against, why we don't really have standards that say it's appropriate to put a audio crossing at like the mid block or the mid bus stop crossing, and then the one at the main crossing is used for the main crossing across the road. So how that works is still just the logistics of it, how it's configured. Still under a little bit of conversation with WMATA, but of course, there are standards for how those are put into place and how they're used. So that is the bus stop island at Clarendon Pierce. I don't know if anyone has any questions on this specifically, if you'd like me to go through the rest of the presentation.
I do.
Okay.
So maybe you did say something about this, but the crossings of the bike lane that runs behind the island there, how will someone with low vision or no vision know that they're coming to that and be aware that there is traffic that they need to watch for that bike lane, especially if they haven't seen anything like that before?
Right, and I think some of that is going to need to be handled with travel training. We need to have people become familiar with these, go out, actually walk them, have someone work with them and explain what to do. There's also linear tactile treatments, and I don't know if you're familiar with the linear tactile treatment, but they're these about 1 by 2 foot squares that go into the ground, and they have raised like bar on it, which essentially allows, if someone has a cane, if you're walking along it, you can have your cane in the channels that direct you into the directions you want to go. If you're coming perpendicular to it, you would hit that, and you would use that. You see these a lot. I've seen them a lot in places like Korea. I think in some European countries they have it. You don't see them as often here in the U.S., but that is one of the treatments that kind of indicates where these entrances are to the crossing. We have talked about like an information post, like at the crossing, having a pole that is different than something you would see like a bus stop pole, that has some kind of information on that in a tactile manner, whether it's braille or raised text, that explains a little bit that you're here at a floating bus stop. But again, I think the primary thing is people having travel training and becoming more familiar with this over time as more are installed.
Thank you.
Paul, I have a question. I'm looking at your plan sheet there.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me the streets are numbered backwards. Oh no, I see what's going on. the sign that says Clarendon Boulevard is a sign. That's not saying that that's Clarendon Boulevard. So we're looking at Pierce Street running north and south and
Correct.
up and down, and got it. Okay, sorry, my mistake. I was reading words that are actually to be posted as sign panels. Sorry.
All right. Another place that we are going to be installing, and these are just the most recent ones that are coming up in the process, is the complete streets along Walter Reed Drive. This is also a coordination between Arlington Public Schools and Arlington County. Arlington Public Schools want to do the construction, as they're doing construction on this site, to construct the bus stops that will be adjacent to their site. So that is how the partnership is working. We're working on the design right now. And they will be doing construction, I believe, starting this summer and finishing sometime in 2026, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't have the timelines. I'm not on the planning part of that. So this would be, I guess we'll go right down the road here. 1, 2, 3, 4. This bus stop, Walter Reed Drive. Again, you can see the crossing at the curb, and then the crossing where the bus stop will be. This is preferred. The reason we'd like to have the crossing where someone can go just straight across and end up at the bus stop. That's what we get here. You can see the tactile infrastructure there. Again, I believe this is a raised crosswalk here also, so that does give some vertical deflection and helps bike slow down. Again, a stop bar with a stop for pedestrians at that location, and then the second crossing at the intersection. Moving along. And this is in front of the school. This is both stops 2 and 3. Again, you can see there is a main crossing. And this one, we don't have multiple crossings. There's just a singular crossing that on the one at the bottom of the plan sheet. A single crossing to the bus stop. You can see the again the tactile infrastructure guiding people to where the stop is, and then across to the other one with a secondary crossing at the again, allowing people to cross directly to where the bus stop is, again with the infrastructure, the railings along the back, and to direct people to the crossings. And then the final stop is at the end. This is Walter Reed Drive. Columbia Pike is to the right off the sheet, but you can see again a crossing directly to the bus stop. Again, a singular crossing here, a stop bar, and I believe this is again a raised crosswalk to the stop. You can see the infrastructure in pavement infrastructure to indicate where the crossing should be. Again, railings along the back to channelize people to the stop. And just a couple of quick examples to show. And right now what we're doing is we're working with WMATA. As I said, they're still they are still in discussions with their accessibility committee. There's a lot of concerns from particularly people with low vision on how these will work. And how they can be safe. So as I said, we have complied with ADA and all the other relevant standards for installation of bus stops. We've tried to bring those together in our standards, but understand that, as more of these are installed, as we learn more, we will continue to refine those standards. And we're going to continue to work with WMATA, as we do have, I believe there are 20 some of these treatments in the pipeline. So we need to keep working with WMATA to make sure they're comfortable with all the installations, make sure they work with bus operations. And I think that is about it. So if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Yeah, this is Pam. Thank you for your presentation, as always. It's great work, and I just feel like all of these are in my neighborhood that you're putting together. There's so many in National Landing. Can you go back to the slide for the Walter Reed one that shows bus stop 2 and 3? Yeah, and I to me they just look really different, 2 and 3. Can you explain a little bit why they're so different?
I'm not sure. Well, the width of them, I'm not sure exactly what elements you're talking about looking different.
Well, one has a single crossing, the other one has 2 crossings.
Okay.
But the patterning is different too. The other one has like a triangle within a triangle.
Yeah, when you see that triangle within a triangle, that indicates the raised crosswalk. That will actually be on the pavement as you go up the raised crosswalk. That is the symbology for that. We try to put raised crosswalks in where we can. One, because it makes it you're not going down a ramp, you're going directly at grade across. It also provides some vertical deflection for bikes, hopefully to provide an element to slow them down. The biggest obstacle with the raised crosswalks is drainage, because they effectively work as a dam, and it can get very complicated if you don't have a drop inlet. If the water is flowing downstream past the raised crosswalk, it's you can't do that because you get pooling, and it's completely ineffective. So that is one of our main obstacles. It could also be because of spacing. You can see there is the island on the top is much wider than the island on the bottom. So while we want these to be consistent, we want them to in fact, be as consistent as possible, but every installation is different because every location has different in a different environment. The reason we have the second bus crossing on the one on the top is because that does allow us to cross directly to the bus stop. The one on the bottom, you do have to take a left and get over to the stop, but it wouldn't make sense to have a stop right at the bus stop and then a stop, 5-10 yards away at the main crossing. So that's why you're seeing the difference, I think, there.
That's helpful, and I think that this page is a great example of why you have to do things differently in some conditions, and you can explain why that's true. And I think people would really appreciate knowing that, oh, we'd like to do this. No, we really have to do this because of stormwater and whatever. So that's good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just another comment about that plan sheet we're looking at. The northbound bus stop on the top of the sheet is, I don't know what you call it. It's protecting some car parking on the left of the drawing, and the bus stop on the south side is protecting a bike share station, which is much narrower, more compact than parked cars plus a median. So I don't know which came first, the determination that there had to be parking there or the size of the bus island, but I think that's one of the reasons why they're so different.
I have 2 quick questions. One, is it possible to put a drain through this, basically, put like a 4-inch pipe or something and just angle the ends of it and put a grate or something on it that allows traffic to move over it, but still allows keeps water from pooling on one side or another.
So yeah, there is a treatment, and we're doing it in a couple places where it wouldn't be, so it would be on the curb. You would have to redirect the water over to the curb. Then there would be a grate that allows people to walk across, and it would go out. That takes a little extra engineering and the maintenance of it. If that drain gets plugged up, we have to have someone go out there and clean it out. So we do, depending on how many pedestrians, how many bicycles, we would look at that. But sometimes it isn't. And I'm not an engineer, and all I know is water goes downhill. And when they tell me there's a drainage issue, I try not to delve too much further in that. But that is, in general, that's what we try to do. And more of the complications could be answered by an engineer.
I'm going to echo that as a colleague of Paul's staff with the county, also not an engineer, but deal with engineers all the time. They do not like drainage structures that require maintenance, whether it's a trench drain or something that has a flap or a lid or a narrow opening. They create lots of troubles. It comes up all the time in bike and ped infrastructures. We're trying to squeeze our facilities into existing streets, and if we introduce humps or raised crossings or something, it creates issues with the stormwater. Then the engineers really scream about that, rightfully so. Because it's big storm event. You don't want to have a truck full of 10 guys going out and cleaning out a 4-inch pipe. So it's a balancing act.
Okay. One last question was: have you provided this update to the Disability Advisory Commission?
I have not provided this specific update to the Disability Advisory Commission. I have been back in September, we kind of finalized our standards. I think I did go around at that point and talk briefly about it, but really waiting to look towards WMATA because the idea of a regional standard was important, particularly from the Disability Service Board. And probably do need to go back at some time soon to talk to them and make another round. But as I said, there are still concerns that we're aware of, particularly with people with low vision, about these. And it just hasn't been done. And as we continue to work, because like I said, this whole presentation was started with a discussion with WMATA on these specific projects because they're coming up so soon that we still haven't. I want to make sure that we understand what the must-haves are for each one of these and what are optional parts of the treatment. And we feel very confident that these are safe and able to be used. But if there are some minor things that WMATA wants, and I think particularly the guidance post and the use of audio signals are still kind of outstanding with the idea of how can we have better notice that a bike's coming, particularly for someone with low vision, because bicycles are so quiet. I think that the stop for pedestrians and the stop bars will help with that. But there's just a little more refining I thought that need to be done before I went back.
But these will be, these are, I guess, at a planned stage where they will be built as shown here.
At this point, these are pretty close to final drawings, but there is some tweaking that could go on.
Okay. Yeah, I think personally, I think it would be good to at least let them know about these ones that are coming, even though standards have not been finalized.
Understood. And some of my colleagues from the engineering group, they have been making these rounds also. So I know that they have been to the Disability Service Board. I don't know if they've been with these specific ones, but I'll talk to them and we'll make sure that someone gets to them to discuss.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Any other questions? Oh, it looks like Eric, do you have a question?
Yeah, one question from me, and forgive me if it's sort of beyond the scope of today's presentation. I've seen some of these. I think seen one of these in Roslyn. Looks pretty cool, and there are definitely some good benefits. My question though is sort of on the decision process for these in terms of a cost benefit. Like, how are decisions made that one of these or two of these is more effective than putting a shelter at a place where there's no shelter right now, particularly to attract riders, in an environment where the transportation strategic study from a few months ago highlighted a continued, low ridership. I see empty buses or almost empty buses all the time on Langston and Glebe. So I think these are worthwhile projects in and of themselves, but how is the benefit of this measured against the benefit of, just a regular bus shelter or improved sidewalks, that type of thing? Thanks.
Excuse me. We have a program that is for the improvement of bus stops. We are going through and we are improving bus stops throughout the county. The standards do have specific guidelines for how many riders should be at a stop before a shelter is installed. But there is funding for that that is separate from this program. This is really what the decision is here is you have all this bicycle infrastructure that is being installed, and I am, forgive me, I'm not as familiar with the master plan bicycle element as I probably should be, but I know that protected bike lanes are a big part of that, and this is like a continuation of that commitment to, from what I understand, a commitment to that protected bike lane. So that you're avoiding the interaction with buses and bicycles. From my perspective, as someone who's worked in transit, I absolutely love these treatments because that is one of the most difficult conflicts that you have. A bus that is driving down the road and there's a bicycle, a heavy bicycle, throughput also. It averages 10 to 12 miles an hour, even though it'll speed up to 25, it has to slow down at the bus stop, it stops. So what happens is you'll have the bicycle come up behind the bus stop while it stops, it'll pass it, the bus stop passes the bicycle and then has to pull over, and you get this yo-yo effect all the way down. It gives the driver another element of something that they have to really pay close attention to in terms of safety. Whereas this separates out that conflict and they can concentrate on other vehicles and what's in front of them versus a bicycle coming up on them and accidentally pulling out and raising that conflict.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, you're muted. Eric Goodman.
Any other last questions? All right. Well, thank you, Paul, very much for taking the time to come and speak to us and give us an update.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate your time.
And I see we have another person on here, Meg Flores, who
Hi there.
hello. If you don't mind, could you introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. And I apologize for my delay. The children have been crazy today, but I am the Transportation Commission liaison for the Pedestrian Commission.
Right.
Okay. So let me ask if, being the new Transportation Commission liaison, would David, would she be considered a new member today if we're trying to get a quorum?
That's a good question. I don't think it happens that instantly, but Meg,
Okay.
you're welcome to I guess apply to become a member. It's a very low threshold. No, we like new members, and I think somewhat unusually, I think Chris Yeri is going away, and Chris Yeri has been a pedestrian committee liaison to the Transportation Commission. And this is a little bit the other direction. The Transportation Commission is sending a liaison to the committee. So it's not an automatic reciprocal arrangement, but if you're interested in becoming a member of the PAC, we would certainly welcome you to do that.
Unfortunately, I want to make sure I'm committing my whole self to my existing commitments. So wouldn't want to put anyone out and over commit and under.
All right.
We thank you very much for
coming,
coming, though.
Overcommit and underperform.
Of course.
Fair enough. Well, Meg, you're very welcome. Nice to have you here. And
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
You missed the introduction of the rest of the committee, but I'm not going to stop to do that now.
Can I ask a question, I guess, of Meg? Since you are our new liaison, can you give us just maybe a brief focus on, or at least what you may focus on in terms of your communication with our committee?
So as a liaison, my focus is going to be on how the conversations will influence the greater transportation strategy and what the Transportation Commission ends up recommending. We have a variety of liaisons that serve on several different commissions and committees all across the county. And we sit on each of those as a liaison to make sure that everyone works cohesively and thoughtfully and doing our part to promote that, not strongholding, because I feel like sometimes me saying that comes off in that manner, but we work better when we work together, and making sure that we hear all voices as we make our decisions, and providing insight into what we're seeing come before us, and seeing what comes before y'all only helps us create a more cohesive set of recommendations for the county board.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Do you think, it's sort of in a reciprocal manner, that you can sometimes give us a little heads up on some of the things that you all may be working on that are pedestrian related, just to kind of let us know, because since we don't have a representative there for us, it would certainly be good to know any initiatives that you might have that could affect us.
Yeah, and give me just 1 second. Let me redirect the toddler. Sorry, I have a very vocal 2.5-year-old, which is why I'm not on video. Absolutely. And so just in full transparency, we had our meeting last week for February. We'll have another one in February, but it's technically our March meeting. And at the one that we had last Thursday, we had a update for the Goodwill site come before the Transportation Commission, and had a conversation. If you're not familiar with it, it is the Goodwill location that sits on Glebe Road and Route 50. It's a very unique parcel because it only has one road access point, and there needs to be it's one of the unique locations that actually needs an auto moat to go around the building because it is one of the busiest Goodwill drop-off zones. It is the busiest in the region, and they claim it is the busiest, likely the busiest nationwide for donations. And so it's very important that we make safe but effective access points. And so the team of engineers and Goodwill team members have worked together to incorporate a fair housing community partner as well, and they've worked hand in hand with the county staff to put forward a very thoughtful proposal with lots of insights, but also lots of concern for all of the different paths of travel that will go in and around the area. There is, in addition to that site, right now it is exclusively a Goodwill store and donation center. They're expanding the donation center, adding fair housing units, and adding a daycare. And from a pedestrian perspective, one of our biggest points of concern and conversation was how do we make sure that pedestrians are safe, and Glebe Road just generally is crazy. And so that was a point of discussion as well. So in that note, as we see those things, David and Eric, to your points, I'm happy to bring that back to you. And if I know about things before, and we have a meeting that happens before, and I have an understanding of our agenda, or say our next meeting, I'd be happy to showcase what we are looking at and kind of gain all the insight I can from the pedestrian committee. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does, and thank you very much. And also thanks for providing an example about the Goodwill site. We actually do have a couple of our folks that have been working with that as well. We do have some folks that sit on site plan reviews. But very much appreciated. Thank you.
Of course.
All right, with that, David, if you want to kind of talk about winter operations and snow clearing post snowstorms, and actually we may be challenged later this week. My understanding is that there's a potential for, I guess, 0 to 4 inches of snow later in the week.
Yeah, I saw the temperatures were predicted to be sub-freezing, so that's always possible. So yes, winter operations and snow. This is not a topic I know a lot about, but I decided to look into this for the purposes of coming back to the committee with more information than we had. A little bit of history here. I think that the county's response to snow falls in a similar bucket to the way the county does MOTs and the way the county responds to report a problem requests. It's a very diffuse process. It involves a lot of players. I don't see one person in charge of it, but I'm going to share with you what I've found out as I've dug into this. And I've reached out to a lot of people that I don't typically interact with very much. I've gotten some very encouraging, informative responses, but I'm not through. So this is a work in progress. I'm going to share with you a work in progress. And so I'm going to take the screen, and so I can grab some things off my desktop and share those. And everybody should be looking at my mostly blank blue desktop. And first thing I'm going to do is go to a web browser and pull, if I can find one. I've cleared the desk off too much. I need a web browser. Doggone it. I thought I had this figured out. There we are. I want to go here. And then I don't know if folks are aware of this resource. This is Arlington County's snow and ice page. And this lays out all sorts of contacts and links and the ordinance. And I think during snow events, and we're not having one right now, so it doesn't look the same. I think during snow events, this is kind of the command center. This is where you would go for current updates, and you can map where the snow plows are out in the field and all of that. And then it links to various policies and procedures and priorities. And one of the things I wanted to point out is, now this is the live map. This is the 4-phase response program that the county is intending to follow. And I haven't memorized this. I just found this yesterday. I don't live in Arlington, so this is not something I'm very familiar with. So there's an alert and a preparation phase. There's a during the storm phase of clearing the primary routes, and principally for the benefit of emergency service vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances, police, things like that. Then phase 3, when things start to taper off in a snowstorm, get into the residential streets, and then cleanup. And what caught my attention here is that this is when the county's supposed to clean everything. And I think, and justifiably so, the bicycle and the pedestrian committees have had a lot of history with this phase taking too long and getting short shrift. So what I've been investigating is, in this standardized response, which is policy driven and involves a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, where are the priorities for creating safe conditions for people on bicycles and walking? And it's a bit of a mixed bag. So I'm going to park that page for a moment and go over here to my very preliminary fact-finding, record-keeping spreadsheet of how I'm going to keep track of the pieces of this puzzle as I find them out. So I'm going to enlarge this a little bit. And I didn't limit my inquiry only to Arlington County folks, because we're dependent on DC, we're dependent on VDOT, we're dependent on Park Service, etc. But I have so far reached out to Water Sewer Streets Bureau, Transit Bureau, Facilities, Parks and Rec, the BIDs, Nova Parks, who runs WNOD Trail and Regional Parks, VDOT, WMATA, haven't reached out to WMATA yet, National Park Service, and DDOT. And the early returns are encouraging. People want to help, but now they're going to be busy preparing for a snow event the next few days, so they're not going to pay much attention to me for a little while. Who I identified, which was news to me, I might have been able to predict it, but I didn't. I don't know these folks. There's a fellow named Harry Wang. Mr. Wang is the bureau chief for the Water Sewer Streets Bureau. He is, if you will, the fellow in charge of the county's response for snow. He's based in the Trade Center down in Shirlington, and they deploy massive numbers of equipment, lots of staff to answer the need for clearing snow, with a lot of help. And I don't have all the moving pieces figured out, but I know that County Facilities Department, Facilities Bureau rather, they have a massive amount of work to do. And I'm going to show you a map of what they do. They're responsible for clearing 195 something county facilities, schools, courthouses, fire stations, community centers. But if you'll notice, this map was last updated in 2011. So I bet this is not what they're actually using these days, but this is what's on the website. This is the map of record, if you will. So I want to find out what are the actual marching orders. And I'm gonna park that for a minute. And well, that was it for the most part. So I've gone one round so far, reaching out to people and getting some responses back, very, very collegial, good, informative responses. And I need to go another round and get back to people. For example, I heard from folks in the Transit Bureau, but they didn't say whether exactly they cleaned the ART bus stops only or also the WMATA stops. So maybe Paul knows if he's still here. And Nova Parks, I haven't heard back from them. So I'd like to know from the folks on the pedestrian committee, what are your particular concerns so I can focus on those as I'm asking people to help me understand this world, because it's complicated. It involves a lot of people. It involves contractors. It involves people outside the county. And I need to know more. What are the places that, what are the places and the sort of the barriers that create real issues in the wake of snowstorms? I know some of them. They are things like curb ramps that get filled up with snow when the streets are plowed, and then they sit there and they harden and become mountains, and they're hard to cross. The initial indication is that if that happens, it's still the responsibility of the nearby property owners to clear the curb ramps. I don't think that happens very much. So then the outstanding question is about enforcement. And I was completely in the dark about enforcement. And apparently enforcement comes through the workings of the Inspection Services Division and the Department of Public Safety, Communications, and Emergency Management. So far, I haven't had a single person tell me that they know of any time when an enforcement action has been put into effect because someone didn't do their part to clear snow. So I'm still looking for any evidence that enforcement, which is part of the snow ordinance, is actually ever employed to get things cleaned up. Because I know that's a sticking point, and I'll be looking into that further. So I'm going to give up the screen and come back to it if people want. And I see Eric has a question, and who else?
So I guess I'll start this out, but I'd certainly like other participants. For me, the curb ramps, I think that the folks who do the clearing often, at least for, I will say not maybe, I won't speak to neighborhoods, I'll speak to businesses. I think they're very good at salting and clearing all the way to the bottom of the curb ramp, but not the gutter pan, which is in the street itself. And that's usually where a lot of this stuff builds up. It's right at the gutter pan, and it's usually because of plowing. So I don't think the county would, from a liability standpoint, would want any business to clear within the street itself, because if they get injured, then the county is responsible for that. So, so my guess is that that is not going to be done by them. And then the other two things are essentially areas of refuge. You know, pedestrian islands. Often they end up with barriers on either side, and then they don't get cleared at all, or snow actually gets dumped on them. So that's another one. And then bridges, I think you mentioned bridges, but the other bridges are bridges over highways as well. Those the sidewalks on those bridges often are not cleared for very long time. So I'm going to be quiet here, and I'm going to let others sort of raise their hand. I see Pam has her hand up.
Pam's hands up.
Hi. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it was like in 22202 after the most recent snow. The good news for Virginia Highlands Park is they did a pretty good job on the sidewalks on the west side and not too bad on the 15th Street side, but they did a terrible job on the side that goes along Hayes. The bike lanes there were a problem, and the sidewalks are awful. I had to walk in the parking lot. So they were partially okay, partially not. They really need to pay attention to the sidewalks and bike lanes there. As you know, we have a beautiful new protected intersection at 15th and
Eads.
Eads, yes. And it was a mess. The snow got clogged up in these protected bike lanes. The actual intersection has all this kind of complex jutting out concrete, separating bikes from peds and peds from everything else. And they were all clogged up with snow until it melted. And it made it very, very hard for either pedestrians to cross or cyclists to travel there. And the shopping places over in Pentagon City, the mall, I think, did a terrible job, especially on the Hayes Street side. Again, the bike lanes were a mess. The sidewalks were a mess. On the Joy Street side for the renamed shopping center over there, that they did a pretty good job, except when you went around the corner on Army Navy, the sidewalk there was just awful. And I don't know why. So it's variable. Some businesses do okay, and a lot of businesses don't.
I'm gonna leave my comfort zone a little bit and make a suggestion. This topic seems to me a pretty clear case of the county's major emphasis being on streets to move cars. So in this environment where modal equity, modal parity are up for discussion, I think this is a place where the pedestrian committee, maybe the bicycle committee, maybe the disability committee, maybe the transit committee can perhaps make common cause and make some noise about this. If you read through the material about the county's snow response, it's about getting plows out there to cleared streets. And we know that lots of streets in the county carry very few cars. And clearly, the major arterials are treated first and eventually get to the residential streets. But some of our sidewalks carry a couple thousand people a day. And if they're not cleared right away, they're out of commission. And any gaps that leave a segment of sidewalk uncleared create a real barrier. So all that's really obvious, but there's a need for some advocacy here, because otherwise, as has been typical default condition for decades, the bike and the ped interests are not going to get what they need until some noise is made. Now, that was all editorial, so I said that as just me personally getting it out there, and I'm going to shut up for a while.
Well, I guess I want to mention something. I think maybe you hit on a nail on the head on something. I know our Vision Zero effort is really an infrastructure effort, but why we may want to talk to Vision Zero about an operational effort as well, because
that's a great idea, Eric.
If we're sending folks into areas, essentially to avoid some of these things, they have to walk in the streets and other places like that. That really is sort of counter to Vision Zero. So maybe that's at least a place that we can address.
That's a great idea. I agree that that's a place, that's an angle, if you will, worth pursuing. And I can start talking to my colleagues about that, because you try to do something with infrastructure, you're immediately talking about a lot of money, and some of the amelioration of a poorly cleared pedestrian environment doesn't need to be very expensive.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so I've been reluctant to dive into the snow question for a long time because it's so complicated. But now that I've dipped my toe into it, I want to find out more. I mean, it's a system that works pretty well. We don't get a lot of snow, so it's not really finely tuned. If we get big snows, everything grinds to a halt. And there are so many people involved with so many pieces of the puzzle that it's kind of intriguing. So I'm going to keep digging a bit more. I see Meg has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Meg.
So I don't know if this is, I have not looked or Googled myself, but I do wonder if there's any national level research to point to a rise in pedestrian or even cyclists injuries or accidents during or after a snow event that has correlation with the quality of snow removal.
Good question. I don't know. I know that I've fallen on sidewalks that haven't been cleared and hurt myself, but I don't know if anybody's keeping score.
Thank you. Anyone else want to chime in before we move on? All right, well, let's move on. We are running a little bit behind, so I'm going to try and be quick on the next item. So if folks, hopefully folks have the agenda in front of them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the PAC capital improvement plan response to the county manager. So if people recall, last month we were working with the Bicycle Advisory Committee to come up with a list of things we would like to emphasize for the upcoming CIP, which is the next 10-year plan, essentially. And we did send that out, and we got a response back from the county manager saying, and I'll just paraphrase this, that, thank you so much. This is good timing. Thanks for telling us what your priorities are. With all these, some of them new, some of them existing that are in the CIP, what would you like us to de-emphasize? And so essentially he's asking us to do that. So what I was asked by Cynthia Palmer, who's the chair of the BAC, she asked me to look into what's in the current CIP. So I'm going to bring that up and just talk about that briefly. And then, and I'm not going to go through each item, which I did at the BAC meeting, but just kind of go sort of show what's in the CIP right now. And then I'm going to explain what sort of responses I got from the BAC and how we may want to jointly respond with them. So let me first see if I can share what I have here up. So folks, let me know, and I'm going to try also to see if I can also see if anybody has any comments. Folks are, oh, and I see Meg has her hand up. Oh, so she must have gone off.
I think she might have lost connection.
Or maybe she was up to say that she had to leave. I don't know.
Okay.
I was reporting to my phone. I'm back.
Oh, okay. Okay. Did you have a question or just letting us know you're back?
That was it.
Okay. Okay, very good. So I'm going to try and make this a little bit larger. I don't know if folks can see it. Make it just hair larger. So just wanted to kind of go over what's in the current CIP. So I guess a list of, let's see here. Here it says backpack items, current. So you know what? This is, I believe, have the wrong list in front of me. Or at least I don't have the highlighted list that I had before. So I will just try and sort of, anyway, this is a list, I guess, of the items that are in the current CIP, the 20, No, and then these were the new suggestions. I do not have the right thing up in front of me here, so this is actually what we were putting out before, so I may have to do this later, but just to instead of trying to find that, which may take me a little more work, I may do it by the end of the meeting. But essentially, I went through the CIP and looked. There were only a couple sort of programs I thought that I had some questions about. I think most of the things in there that affected pedestrians were things that we would support. There were two things that I think were high dollar items. One of them was the one that Pam actually talked about, which is the Crystal City to DCA walkway, or I should say Esplanade. That I think was an awfully big expense. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $35 million from Arlington for that effort. So I guess with all the other things that for bicyclists and pedestrians that we're looking for that are safety improvements, I guess the question really comes down to on that one, is that one that we would de-emphasize? So that I brought that to the back. The other item was in Roslyn. I believe it's Fort Myer Drive has an underpass that really passes under that's sort of the heart of Roslyn, and there is thought to take that underpass out and put in or just bring everything to grade, bring everything level. And so again, a question, this seems really more car centric and less pedestrian centric. So I bring that up as maybe another item of question. And I think that the cost for that was somewhere in the neighborhood of $45 million. Now, my understanding is that there are other folks involved. There are other developers and others involved with these. The total cost will likely not be borne by the county, but they will have to kick in quite a bit probably for that. So anyway, and I see Pam's hand is up, but before I finish up here, I just want to finish up for a moment. What we decided is not to really give sort of fodder, you want to call it, for the county manager, but instead to maybe write back and maybe ask some questions about these items, just that they're right offhand. You know, there are a lot of other initiatives that are sort of more focused on directly on safety, but simply ask that question. There also are several efforts that are winding down, and I can certainly mention those and say, well, you know, these items are going off the table, so we'd like some of our initiatives to go on the table. So like Columbia Pike, the efforts on Columbia Pike over the last 10 years to make that more pedestrian friendly and just improve, I guess, transportation along Columbia Pike. That one is getting close to the end. I think it has maybe another year and a half, and that's finished. So I think I can certainly point back to the manager some of the items that are coming off the table already. So with that, I see Pam has her hand up, and take it away, Pam.
Hi, please don't mess with CC to DCA. It is definitely a bike ped safety issue. There is no safe way to get to the airport now on foot. And that is something that is highly desirable for those of us who live in the community, and people who work there, people who travel there. It's actually really important, and something certainly that our neighborhood and the bid and Amazon has really supported. It was one of the projects that the state said we would deliver to Amazon as
Well,
part
it
of the
is.
agreement.
So,
And
sorry to interrupt, but it is one of the largest amounts that the county is looking to put towards in the CIP. So that's why
yeah,
I,
maybe
I
there's
certainly
a
raised
way.
that.
Maybe there's a way to jiggle the financing, but the project has got to stay. It's really, really important. And I think you are right that a lot of the Columbia Pike projects are certainly in the works and getting close to being finished. So maybe that's something they could start to scale down. I mean, you don't want to stop them at this point because they need to be completed, but I think they're almost done.
Right, right. But certainly I could point back to the manager, some of these things are winding down. So this is a great opportunity for us to talk about some new initiatives as we should.
Right. And of course, if you could find any pot that they're using to bring Route 1 down to grade, I'd be happy if you got rid of that.
I did not see that in the CIP.
No, I don't think it's in there.
Yeah.
It's a VDOT project.
It's a VDOT project.
Right, right. So,
And
but
Eric, the other one you mentioned in Roslyn, the Fort Myer, bringing Fort Myer down to grade, or however that's done, I think that's driven by developer interests because they want some new street
real
frontage.
estate.
And new real estate, yeah. But I can, this is way out of my realm. I'm going to shut up.
Anyway, that's my thought in terms of writing something back. I'm going to probably work with Cynthia Palmer on a draft and share that with folks before I send anything back to the county manager. With that, anybody else have any comments? I see
Eric popped up.
Just your camera popped up. I assume you might have a comment.
Thanks. Just one thing to consider. Langston Boulevard, Lee Highway, before we had our plan that was just passed in November, was ineligible for capital improvement funds since we didn't have, it wasn't a planning area. So there's sort of like decades of undone potential projects here. And that's now sort of a new area that can be looked at. So if we're looking for the new ideas, new projects in an area that hasn't gotten anything, that'd be a place to look.
So Langston and where? I'm sorry, was it just the Langston corridor?
Yeah, the Langston Boulevard corridor, because it wasn't a planning area, wasn't able, my understanding is to get transportation, improvements from the capital improvement plan. But now that it is eligible too. And there's sort of a separate path of, Langston Boulevard Alliance, which I'm a part of, is trying to advocate for that. But
okay. I don't believe we spoke specifically about that when we sent that to the county manager. At this point, I'm really want to respond back to the manager with the thought that, hey, there may be at least certainly we can point to the Heart of Roslyn issue, and then also talk about other projects winding down. At least I think we're responding to his request. Pam, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to really tell the county manager much of anything. I mean, I don't want to really diss any projects that are already out there and proposed. So yeah, do it really, really carefully and gently, whatever we say.
All right. Well, anyway, that's pretty much where I'm going, and I think you're close. We can ask some questions back to the county manager and pretty much talk about winding down efforts, and maybe just reemphasize that because some of these efforts are winding down, it would be a good opportunity to bring some new things to the table. So. All right, I don't have anything more on that. Let's move on, and I know we've eaten up a lot of time here, but let's talk really briefly about our next meeting. I believe at the end of the last meeting, we discussed the possibility of having a real live meeting. And so with that comes now when we do a live meeting, it has to be a hybrid meeting. We have to have the ability for folks also to connect in virtually. So with that, David was able to find the closest and soonest place that we could have a meeting would be at the Longbridge Aquatic Center, which initially you might ask, well, you know, why would we want something way out there? There's not even a metro directly to it. You know, it's a little ways away. But as we are thinking about the Route 1 efforts and even having a joint meeting with the Bicycle Advisory Committee, we kind of came up with the thought, well, maybe we could start from the Roslyn Metro. I mean, I'm sorry, the Crystal City Metro and walk to the Aquatic Center, which is about a mile away, just approximately a mile. So it's not a terribly long walk. But as we do that, we can maybe point out some of the things, some of the controversial areas there, and then spend the next, say, hour and 15-minute meeting, portion of the meeting, discussing this with VDOT and whoever they bring to the table to give us an update. So that's the thought. And then David even mentioned that he might be able to shuttle people back to the metro afterwards, or we certainly, for safety and everything else, we can walk back as in groups.
So here's a word about the logistics for that meeting. So yes, we've reserved a room. It's called Community Room 3. It's right on the ground floor of the main part of the Aquatic Center as you walk in, next to the sort of registration desk to the left, sort of towards the competition pool. It's a conference room, looks like the ones in the courthouse building, has all the appropriate technology for running a hybrid meeting. And I have reserved a car, and I will have a colleague, Michelle Stafford, who will run the meeting technology while I, do what I do here, which is help with the meeting. And I thought it was a great idea to make use of a period of time to walk from Crystal City to Longbridge Park, a mile or so. We can talk about, there's a lot going on down there. We can't see it all, obviously, in an hour. There's work going on, all sorts of Amazon buildings, the water park, Route 1, Longbridge Drive, the Boundary Channel Drive project, Army Navy Drive Complete Streets project. So between now and a month from now, maybe we can come up with a walking route, an itinerary. Mary DeLau, I was just going to think of you. Maybe you can help us plan a
I'll do a
route.
walk for the
Plan a 45-minute, 50-minute walk from Crystal City Metro to the Longbridge Aquatic Center. And I will have a car so I can take people back to the metro, anybody who needs a ride. Might take a couple of trips. They don't have a van available. It's going to be a passenger car.
No, but what I was going to ask, I wonder, so I know you reserved it and all that, but is there somewhere near the metro that we could be, just in the spirit of active transportation, like that we don't have to be? And it just like, it seems like it's at night and we'd be like running around in the dark. And I don't want to complicate it by any means, but I don't really know what all is around the metro, but I guess probably not much.
Well, we have to run a hybrid meeting. We can't just have an in-person meeting. We have to have a hybrid component. So even the first part of our hybrid meeting is going to be offline because we, unless somebody's going to have a TV crew with us. And then Dan Reinhardt from VDOT is going to pipe in. He's not going to be there in the flesh, is my understanding. So we need to have a room. We need to have a room with TVs and screens and microphones and stuff like that. And it'll be dark, but not dark. Dusk, but not dark.
Yeah. I think in a month from now, it should, we should have a little later start.
It'll be
For
twilight. It'll be very romantic, you know, be just sort of like twilight over the river as we're walking with our yellow vests up to the.
But like just kind of brainstorming, I wonder if the bid would know like a hotel or anybody near there that could have a room, like or is it too much trouble to make a big
Well,
thing out of it? Probably it is. Oh, look, there's Matt Jones is here.
there's Matt Jones from the bid.
Speaking of, I didn't realize you were still there.
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming you're getting the Long Bridge facility for free, right?
Yes.
And so obviously, like, Mary's a great suggestion for a hotel, but obviously there's costs associated with it.
Yeah.
However, let me ask my team, and then I can get back to you by the end of the week, see if there's anything that the bid and or hotel partners can do.
That'd be very kind of you, Matt. Thank you.
But I don't want to upend your plans, David, but
Well,
so
and I don't want to take up this meeting's time to do sort of live meeting
Logistics.
planning, logistics
Right.
of a meeting a month from now, but that would be get together, go into a building, leave, walk to another building. There's a lot of friction in those movements, and it used to be easy to plan meetings, and it just is not now. I was surprised and kind of disappointed that I had to go so far afield to find a room that could fit 15 or 20 people. There's just nothing in our building at Courthouse that was not already reserved weeks and weeks and weeks in advance.
yeah.
So this is a new era. It's the first time. What we're trying to do is bring this group back together in person for the first time in 4 years.
Oh, yeah, I
And-
think it's a great idea
and,
too.
and the bicycle advisory committee
And
too.
with the bike advisory committee, and to make it be a bit of an active meeting and have a walk component to it. And so that
Yeah.
was the idea, not just to travel all the way to Crystal City to sit in a room,
So
but anyway, so
Pam has her hand up here.
subject
So,
to further refinement.
yes, and then Matt also. Well, Pam first.
Yeah, David, what is the room capacity of the Long Bridge? Because we could attract a lot of members of our community to the meeting, besides having BAC members and PAC members.
Of course, because it's about Route 1.
Yeah,
Good point. It's not a huge room. I looked at this. I didn't look at the other rooms, which might also be available. So maybe I should shift our reservation to one of the other rooms.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Pam. I'll look into that.
yeah, and I mean, whatever room it is, be good to know the maximum number, and we can encourage people to do it remotely if
Right.
it becomes a problem. But it'd be
Right.
good to know ahead of time. And they may want to walk with us too.
And-
I have 90 people walking down from the subway.
And I believe I'm going to go to Matt here in just a moment. The other thing, though, if for some reason we do have a terrible weather day, we can always shift it to 100%. To
Like this.
a virtual meeting. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
But I would say, given the time frame, as it's sort of, we may get an early spring, whatever, it might work out well. We'll just, I think we'll have to play that by ear in terms of just the weather, but it could turn out to be a very nice meeting if weather is cooperative. And with that, Matt, I think you have your
Yeah, I
hand
said
up.
2 questions. It's sort of piggybacking on Pam's comment. How many people are you expecting to attend, or would you like the room to fit? You said, is it 20 to 30 or more than that?
I was thinking 20-ish, 20, 25. I mean, this group's pretty small. We're 8 or 9 when we're at pretty full strength. If the bike committee people actually come, that could be another 10 or so. I had not thought of the community members that Pam mentioned. That's kind of a wild card. There's John Armstrong.
Oh, good. That could be
But-
another 10 people at least.
It could be another 10 people. We could encourage people to tune in remotely. especially if they can't come to the walk, they would be making all the way to Long Bridge for an hour meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
And what's the date real quick?
13th. It's four weeks from tonight.
March 13th.
Yes.
And you're bringing the audio visual equipment with you?
It's there.
It's there.
Oh, but let's say if it's not at the aquatic center.
Oh,
I'm not sure that's going to work then, would it? Because
Okay.
we don't have any other equipment, right?
we need Anderson Cooper to run this thing.
Okay,
I
so
know.
you need a space with audio visual equipment. That's what you're saying. You need somewhere with AV.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's something that can handle the county's Teams channel.
Okay.
Because that's what we are required to use, I think.
Okay. All right, great. I'll
All
see
right.
what we can do.
Thank
And
you,
I see
Matt.
John Armstrong has joined us. And John, we're going to move on to the next item. We just wanted to mention our next meeting, if all goes well, will be at the Aquatic Center at Longbridge. And it may work out that we kind of do a walk from the Metro to Longbridge Aquatic Center, talking about Route 1 as we go along that, and then the bulk of the rest of the meeting will be with VDOT to talk about what updates they have. We're planning to give us an update. So
sounds great. Thank you.
Great. Moving on. I don't want to make certain I leave enough time for Jim Feaster. So we may have to cut some of the other things short, but let's give Jim some time here to talk about the Commission on Aging condition of sidewalk project and how we may be able to partner with them. So go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. The document speaks for itself, so I'm not going to repeat anything that's in the letter. Since I've been on the Commission on Aging and the Commission on Aging's Transportation Committee and the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, I've never seen any issue brought before either one of those organizations that would not be supported by the other. And I think this letter reflects that. It's quite simple. It's just let's make walking easier for those of us who are aging. The only question that I have that I bring maybe to David and Eric is, assuming that the Pedestrian Advisory Committee says, yes, let's communicate our support for this document. How do we do that? Is that a letter from the Pedestrian Advisory Committee to the chair of the Commission on Aging? Because the Commission on Aging advises the county board, and the Pedestrian Advisory Committee advises the county manager. And I wouldn't want to be presumptuous by having the Pedestrian Advisory Committee sending a letter to the board. So I would say it would be a letter to the chair of the commission and maybe a carbon copy to the county manager. The document for sidewalks is a part of the age-friendly plan that the county approved in 2018,
right,
which is now being updated. And the age-friendly communities is an initiative by AARP and the World Health Organization. And it simply requires the commitment by the political body in charge of the city or the county or the region to promote those policies that support the aging. And obviously walking is an easy one to do because it is very important for the aging population to be mobile. And anything that would support those of us who are aging is good for the entire community.
Right.
So that said, I would like for the committee to approve this and approve a letter that would be transmitted. I'm going to ask David or Eric, to whom should the letter go?
Eric, you're muted.
Thank you. I decided to let you speak. Why don't we agree on actually step back. Why don't we first get a motion that we are going to put out a letter. And I think we have enough people here now. Pam, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, thank you, John, for coming.
So if we can do that, at least that we will write a letter. Then David, if you can inquire on the correct process to ensure that that we are in line with what the I guess the limitations and abilities for our committee to I guess to support a commission's initiative.
Yes, basically it's in support of the age-friendly plan.
Right.
This is a piece of that plan. Yes, and I would be happy to help draft the letter with Eric or David.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind at least putting together an initial draft of of that,
I will do that.
I can take that and then I'll share that with the committee at that time. But let's I guess let's make certain. Let's do a vote. I move the Pedestrian Advisory Committee support this initiative by the Commission on Aging.
Second.
All right, with that, let's, since there's such a small group of folks, maybe we'll just do a voice vote of all the members. So we'll do one at a time. So Jim, I assume you're in support. John? Yes. Okay. Pam?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Okay, myself, yes. And Eric Malpelli? Didn't quite hear his response.
Sorry, I stepped away for childcare.
That's okay. So we are voting on basically sending a letter of support for the Commission on Aging. I guess the sidewalk project, which again, if you can, what was the exact name of that?
Well, it's what is that exact name? Let me look at the letter.
Age-friendly initiative.
Yes, the
age-friendly initiative.
Yeah.
Yes, on the condition of sidewalks.
Yes.
All right.
Any of my other comments were out of context and multitasking. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Have I missed anyone, Pam? I think we got everyone, right? It's unanimous.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was muted.
Okay. Great.
I'll draft something up, Eric, and show it to you and David, and we'll go from there. One just last item, and Andrea can correct me, but the Commission on Aging, I think has a vacancy or two. So if anybody is interested, it's a very interesting committee. I'm no longer on it, but Andrea is, and she can attest that this is one of the interesting commissions that advises the board. And they are looking, I believe they have at least one vacancy. I'm not sure of that, but
that's
there's
true.
Yeah. And so please think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are running up against, we have about 12 more minutes here. I'm going to let David and Mary each have a few minutes, and then we will kind of shave off at the end whatever we can do. But we'll start with, let's have Mary talk real briefly, and then we'll have David talk after that.
Right.
Okay, so I'll be quick. So we have some walks coming up in the spring that I just wanted to highlight. So 2 of them are partnerships. So one is with Alexandria Celebrates Women, And that is on March 23rd. They are doing a Women's History Walk in honor of Women's History Month. So by partnering, it's kind of like the walk we did with the Friends of the Mount Vernon Trail. We'll promote it. I'll participate. Maybe I'll like help with the route a little bit, and we'll just like let our audiences know that it's going on. So that I'm excited about. And then, well, the other walk isn't until October, actually, the partnership with the 9/11 Memorial Trail. They're doing a walk it's actually partially in National Landing, they start at the water park, and then they end up at the 9/11 Memorial, and then they continue on the Mount Vernon Trail. So it's kind of all around National Landing, Pentagon City. So we're also providing them some support and promoting it and going on the walk. And then April 13th, that's the day that we are officially marking National Walking Day. And so I am trying to figure out exactly what walks we'll be doing. I know I'm definitely doing another walk with Vision Zero team and Christine Baker. And we have a couple of ideas on where we might go. And I need to just figure out what will make for a good walk. So that will definitely happen. That's a Saturday morning. And then I'm trying to fill out the day, maybe with 1 or 2 other walks. So that'll be like TBD.
Food.
Yeah, so that's all on
food.
my end, but I'm excited about the Vision Zero, especially. So
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the update.
I will be very, very brief.
Okay.
I've had a lot of camera time already this evening. I wanted to just let this group know that Arlington County won a prize recently. We've been elevated to the gold level in the bicycle friendly community recognition sweepstakes. It's a nationwide program managed by the League of American Bicyclists, and has a lot of curious twists and turns to it, but it's one of the few really widely recognized. It's a widely recognized recognition. It's a recognition of everything that the county does to make the place better for all modes of transportation. And this is where bicycling takes center stage, and we've done really well this time. We've been we've been polishing our silver medal for 10 or 12 years, and we made it into the gold ranks. It's pretty elite company. There's about 30, maybe 40 places across the country, sorry, in the at the gold level. There's a few platinums. We suspect there's something called unobtainium that's out there that nobody has yet reached, but it's a good recognition, and it was a real group effort this time, and the citizens groups played a big part. Colleagues from across county government played a big part. Schools were a big part of it. TE&O, parks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to sort of take a victory lap with this group where I spend quite a bit of time and let you know that the county got this award this year.
Thanks. I have a quick question for Mary with regard to that. Since we, on the walking side, I guess we have an even higher ranking.
Yes.
We do.
My question is the criteria for the bicycle friendly community a more rigorous criteria, because we've just really, went over the crest from silver to gold.
There are 2 different bodies that give the awards.
Right.
Like WALK is the University of North Carolina, and the Walk Friendly Communities program, and this is the league. So, as I remember, I thought the walk was a lot of work too. I don't think it was any less rigorous. Maybe you had more room, I think, to write. It could be a lot more narrative than data driven. And I think the bike was a lot more data driven. And Henry always said that made it really tough, like that. Yeah. There were numbers and like you had it or you didn't. But yeah, walk, we're still like the elite. We're one of 5. And bike, I think it's like 34, because I was counting it the other day just for my own edification. Right. So I still think walk was like a big deal, and that I think WAC helped bring bike up too, because we got to
Yeah.
brag about that in the bike application.
Right.
So,
Great.
Right.
Thank you both for that. Was there anything else, David, that you wanted to point out before we
That's
go
it.
into
I
business?
know we're squeezed for time. I've had a lot of time to speak already tonight.
Okay. Let's go over, we have a few items here, and let's see. I'm still not sure I see the item.
There's one thing.
Pam's item, yeah.
Eric, there's one thing, and it's exactly that. I wanted to mention that an item that Pam drew our attention to did not make it onto the agenda. It's an initiative of Board Chair Libby Garvey this year to have a year-long visioning exercise that they're calling 2050. And it's another round of something the county has done in the past. I think it was most recently done in the 80s, looking at the year 2000. And there's a public engagement component to it. And so maybe Pam would like to speak to that for a bit.
Yeah, and David, I think you did publicize some of the information on our to the PAC group, and I also put something up on our listserv after the meeting. I represented the PAC at the engagement. It was an invitation only event. It was recorded, and there's now a website for this project, and I can send that out again. And I encourage everybody to watch the basic presentations, especially the first two. You can fast forward through the last two probably, but the first two, one was on demography and the other was on climate impact, and those are both very good. A lot of the climate we all probably know. Some of the demography I think was news to us, that we are losing young families, and that's a critical part of Arlington County to keep it vigorous and growing and well employed. And the young families just can't afford to stay here. And that happened with Chris Yari. He and his wife are moving away, and that happened to other PAC members. They move away. They just can't stay here. The other demographic number that was disturbing was that we are a hard time keeping immigrants. Again, they can't afford to live here. And so affordable housing has got to be something that we absolutely focus on and fix. The climate change, yes, obviously it's horrible. A lot of it was on heat islands, and if you live in National Landing, you're in a heat island. If you live in Roslyn, you're in a heat island. A lot of Arlington is a heat island, and we need to deal with that. The fourth presentation was by somebody high up in Amazon, and it was about business, but it was actually mostly about Amazon and the great job that they're doing in National Landing, and true. And the final one was the president of George Mason, and he had a fairly interesting discussion on future of education. It was focused on higher education, but he raised a lot of good issues. He tied it in with a lot of great things that they're doing, but that was worth doing. Then they gave us postcards, and these postcards are available to anyone. You can do it virtually. You can pick it up in your library, and you're supposed to say, "Hi, I'm writing to you from 2050, telling you how great Arlington is because," and fill in the blank. And mine was that we have finally achieved Vision Zero, and gone basically car free, because my prediction was that by 2050 it will be socially unacceptable to own and drive private vehicles, and it will also be cost prohibitive to try to keep them. Insurance and gasoline and everything else is just going to be too expensive. But that was good. So look for those forms, the postcards. I will promote it all again. And this is Libby's key activity in her final year. She's going to be retiring from the board. It's hopefully there will be some good outcome. I think there were 30 tables. Each table had 8 people around it. We got dinner, which was nice, and we
Pam?
yeah, stop.
I only just for one thing, we have one more minute, and I want to make certain, since we have everybody in the room here, can we approve and the minutes from last month?
Yes.
Just want to make certain we get that done. Then we can talk a little bit more.
I'll send a follow-up about it, but something that we should follow.
Okay.
I move that we approve the minutes from the January PAC meeting. What is that horrible noise?
It's just somebody's background sound. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, we got
Any
2 seconds.
comments?
So
Any comments or corrections?
I do not. Anyone else?
I approve.
Anybody disapprove of the minutes? Say no, don't do this. Okay. So I think everybody
Okay.
approved, say yes.
With no objections, this passes. So thank you. We got the minutes taken care of. That's always an important thing. Just don't want that to hang out. With that, and sorry, Pam, if you have more to add on the 2050 meeting, please don't let me stop.
No, I was just starting to babble, and I will follow up with some postings, and it is something that we should pay attention to, as we should be paying attention to the monumental project.
I have two more quick things here, I guess. Still, I'd like to make certain that we get new officers at some point, but I think we'll deal with that later. Does any of our liaisons to any of things SPRC or others have anything they would like to report? Since we do have some liaisons that are on other committees, commissions, and so on. I am on the bike committee, and I really don't have anything, I guess, significant to report from the bicycle meeting, other than I think they're on board for our meeting next month, and we do want to carve out just a teeny bit of that meeting next month to also talk about the maintenance of transportation, or the MOT, with that discussion, which should be coming in the following month. So. Other thing I just want to mention, and I don't know if David knows about this, but I got an email from Valerie Mosley about our charter. It also came to Cynthia, and we're meeting with her tomorrow morning. David, I don't know if you're aware of that or not, to talk about the charter. In my opinion, I'm not going to agree to anything without talking to the PAC, but I will certainly listen to what she has to say in terms of any changes in the current charters as she's sort of moving us forward.
Right. Just to answer your question directed to me, I've known that something's in the work. I don't know what any current version looks like. I've been involved on multiple drafts, mostly a couple of years ago. This is an idea that has come from the manager down. He would like the pedestrian and bicycle and transit committees to have similar guiding principles. And we staff worked on that repeatedly and came to the committees repeatedly with earlier drafts. I don't know where things stand. I do know that they've been in the manager's office getting agreement or getting harmonized, getting massaged into shape. So I think that Valerie's ready to come back with something like a finished product. I haven't seen it. I don't know what the current version looks like.
Well, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'll be tuning in and listening to what she has to say. But I wanted to make certain folks were aware of that. I guess one other thing, I think that since we do not have a neighborhood complete streets representative, I may volunteer for that, but I will certainly give that up if any of our other members would like to take that on. I do feel, since I was in on it at kind of its inception, I'd like to see it become successful. I think it's one of the only ways to kind of build sidewalks without what used to be the neighborhood conservation, and now I guess what they have now doesn't have much teeth. So and if if you get a number of objections, it doesn't get built. But with neighborhood complete streets, there isn't the requirement for a certain I guess a certain number of neighbors approving it, or a certain number of disapprovals that would shelve it. So I think it's still a very useful thing. I know we've gotten some criticism about it, but I plan to at least maybe start attending that until we have another person that would like to represent.
Well, that would make
Yes.
Michelle Stafford very, very happy, Eric.
Okay.
It makes us happy too. Thank
That
you,
means I
Eric.
may do a little less on the SPRC
That's fine.
stuff, but at least want to get that covered.
Right. Absolutely.
So with that, I think that's pretty much all the items here. We had, if anybody has any final announcements, and then we also have, David, there's a couple bullets on the end here about SPRC explained and the Arlington Public Schools representative coming. I think potentially, and then also maybe get TE&O here for the new MUTCD sort of explanation of some of the new things out there. I obviously, with the two meetings coming up, the one that's going to be on Route 1, and then the next one, which we hope will be on the MOT, we might not have the ability to do this, but maybe as we move into May, it would be good to have one or two of these items addressed when we get there.
All right.
All right. With that, does anybody have any announcements or anything they'd like to add? It's awfully quiet out there. All right. With that, I think we'll wrap up. Sorry that we went over a little bit, but I do appreciate everyone's participation. I think we pretty much covered things. Sorry for me joining late. I have to say
Thank
the
you
Metro.
for joining.
Thank you for writing Metro.
Yeah, I just there's a lot of single tracking going on. I don't quite know why. I know they have after 10 p.m. they're supposed to have single tracking on a lot of the lines now because they're trying to do some maintenance, but I don't know why there were some problems. I think between what was it? Between Foggy Bottom and McPherson Square, they basically had folks wait a good half hour to be able to go through there. So, and they consolidated a few trains too.
Not a way to increase membership.
Yeah, I wasn't real happy about it, but I got through it. So,
yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining, and look forward to folks that will make the live meeting next month. This if all goes well with the weather and everything, this could be fun and exciting. So
I agree.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Sorry to join late.